Hi there. Proverbs 11:17 tells us this. Your kindness will reward you, but your cruelty will destroy you. So far, we've looked at the first three components of core strength. The first one is C, I will be committed to truth, no more pretending, internally or externally. O, I will be open to the Holy Spirit and wise others to teach me how to see myself and my situation from God's perspective. And then last week, I talked about the R step. I will take responsibility for myself and be respectful toward others without dishonoring myself. In our video last week on the R step, I talked about the person you are becoming in the midst of your destructive marriage. And I hope you came to learn that disappointment and adversity does shape your character. But unless you're intentional about that shaping, it won't necessarily make you a stronger or better version of yourself. That's why this R step of taking responsibility for how you handle evil and hurt and disappointment is crucial. Years ago, I watched one of the Star Wars movies. It was called The Revenge of the Sith. And it told the story about how Darth Vader, you know, the guy who wears the black suit and mask and breathes through a ventilator, became Darth Vader. Now, if you've never seen Star Wars or any of the series, let me explain. The whole series is based on a premise that there's a good force out there and an evil force out there. And the good force and the evil force are always battling for who's in control. Sound familiar? Of course, it's what many stories are all about, including God's story. Well, in this Star Wars series, the good force is represented by the Jedi Knights, featuring Luke Skywalker and his mentor Obi-Wan Kenobi, and the evil force is represented by Darth Vader and his master, the evil Emperor. Well, in this particular movie in the series, it tells the pre-story of how the evil person, Darth Vader, became Darth Vader. You see, Darth Vader, the bad guy, was not always evil. In fact, originally he was a good guy. His name was Anakin Skywalker. Yes, he was the father of Luke, the current good guy. So what happened to Anakin Skywalker that turned him into Darth Vader? Well, Anakin was a Jedi warrior with Obi-Wan Kenobi, the same master Jedi Knight who's now training his son Luke. But Anakin got offended and hurt by some things someone else said and did. And he allowed his hurt and his anger to get the best of him. And he started to brood and engage in a lot of negative thinking. He began to listen to the wrong people and started to change. In your handout, I put a link for a clip from the movie, if you want to watch it, where Anakin actually fights his mentor. And the dark side that had been lurking in his soul takes over. I show you this because it gives you the backdrop as to why our last step of core, the E step, I will be empathetic and compassionate without enabling a destructive person to continue to abuse or disrespect me, is crucial to your well-being. Because empathy and compassion are often the last things that you feel like having towards someone who had hurt you. Because our human desire is just to retaliate, to hurt someone back who's hurt us. But when you do that, you might feel powerful and satisfied in the moment, but it's not God's way. And as a Christian, you cannot feel good about yourself when you react from your darker side. Paul tells us that we overcome evil, not with more evil of our own, but with good. And what is that good? It's love, compassion, and empathy. Anger and hatred are the opposite of love and compassion and empathy. And when you're filled with fury, even when you feel angry at your own kids, you don't feel a whole lot of compassion at that moment, do you? You just feel rage and sometimes even hatred, if we're honest, especially when your child did something particularly harmful to you or someone else. And so in order for that feeling to begin to dissipate or not get the best of you, you have to take responsibility for yourself and replace that negative feeling with another feeling as well as a behavior. I remember seeing this in action up front, close, when I lived in Pennsylvania in 2006. In Nickel Mines, Pennsylvania, you know the story. A dairy truck driver, apparently nursing a 20-year-old grudge, walked into a one-room Amish schoolhouse and killed 5 young girls and wounded 7 more before killing himself. And we watched the Amish community react to that. And they forgave. They showed compassion for the murderer's wife and their children. They invited them to the funeral. They refused to retaliate or to hate. And the world watched with amazement the love and the compassion after what happened to their children. Someone on the Conquer Facebook page asked recently, what did Jesus mean when he said, turn the other cheek or walk the extra mile in Matthew 5? And what Jesus was telling you and me is that we always have a choice about how we're going to respond to mistreatment and abuse. Because you're not just a victim of it, you're also a responder to it. How will you respond to what's happening to you right now in your home or your life? Will you respond with more evil of your own? Jesus says, no, that's not good for you. You will only grow more and more deformed and evil. The more evil infects you, the more you become like it. It said that the murderer of those Amish children nursed a 20-year-old grudge. Look how it deformed him. Like Anakin Skywalker, soon it took over his entire person. He was captured by the evil one. The Bible warns you that Satan is out to destroy you. That is his purpose. He may have already destroyed your spouse. He may have already destroyed your marriage, but that's not enough for him. He's also out to destroy you and your children and your children's children. And you must not let him. But the antidote to hatred, to evil, to darkness is what? The Bible tells us it's goodness, it's love, it's light. That's why this last step of core is so crucial to your well-being. Hear me, turning the other cheek or not repaying evil for evil may not make one bit of difference to your destructive spouse, but it will make a huge difference in you. The Amish were observed teaching their children, don't hate, forgive. We all watched in amazement. You see, Jesus warns us it's not what your enemy or your destructive spouse does to you that will do the most damage to you, to your soul and your spirit and your body, but rather what you do with what he does to you. Do you allow it to destroy you? Do you allow it to make you bitter and turn you into someone ugly? Hear me. Having empathy or compassion for your destructive spouse does not mean you enable him or trust him or allow him to continue to hurt you. Again, if the murderer of the Amish schoolgirls hadn't committed suicide, I'm sure the Amish would have also wanted him to be in jail. They would have had compassion, yet allowed the consequences of his crime to be on his shoulders. However, compassion recognizes that the abusive person is a broken man, a sinner, just like you. You feel sad for the blindness and darkness that has overcome him, the man that he's allowed himself to become. Maintaining your empathy and compassion without enabling not only protects you from staying a victim, but it protects you from becoming an abuser yourself. Jesus tells us to love our enemy. Now, why would he say such a crazy, unnatural thing? Because he knows our natural tendency is to want to hate an enemy. And when hate rules your heart, you will become a deformed and damaged person. And that is not God's best for you. Like the Star Wars series, you and I are living in a story right now where good and evil are real. And they're battling it out all the time. And if you're not mindful of this battle, and much of this battle is right inside your own heart and mind, you'll get lost and overcome by the dark side. But we overcome evil with good. We guard our heart and mind from bitterness and hatred and resentment and the desire to retaliate, because if we don't, evil will win. But how do you stay compassionate or empathetic and not enable destructive behavior to continue? You do so with good boundaries, with a firm but loving no, by learning to speak up for yourself in ways that are strong and firm and kind and caring as well, and stepping back from wickedness and destructive people when you have to. Empathy and compassion doesn't mean you allow abusive behavior to continue, just like you wouldn't let your child hit you when he or she was angry, even if you knew he was overtired or had a huge letdown at school or wasn't feeling good. The consequences would still be there. The boundary would still be there. You don't hit me. However, how you deliver the consequences or boundary is clear, firm, and loving instead of angry, mean, and bitter. Because often when you deliver boundaries and consequences, when you feel vengeful or hateful, what happens? Later you regret how you handled yourself, and then what do you do? You go back on your boundary or renege on the consequences, and the cycle starts all over again. Instead, practice saying out loud, I love you, but I will not continue to allow myself to be treated this way. Or I care about you, but it's not okay with me that you treat me this way even if you're upset. Or I understand you want me to do this for you, but my answer is no. This is speaking the truth in love from a place of core strength and not reactive anger. And that is good for you. It's also good for the abusive person. And it has the best possible chance of having an impact on him or her for real change. Until next time, God bless.